Let's go.
G'day, legends, and welcome to the very first episode of Roger Wilco podcast. I'm Nicholas, and I'm joined here today with my mate, Kerry.
Hi, everyone.
So before we dive in, let's address the elephant in the room. Why Roger Wilco, Kerry?
Why the name, or why are we doing it?
Why the name?
So the name came about because you are a very pedantic stickler for protocol, and you hate when I say Roger Wilco to you because it is a bit of an oxymoron that in Raytel we never really say that. It's either Roger or Wilco. It's never both. And so I always, because I know it annoys you, will say that when I text you or, you know, whatever, to get a rise out of you. And it's quite funny. And then when we were talking about names for the podcast, I said it as a joke. You flipped your lid about it and you were like, absolutely the fuck not. And then you thought about it for a second and I said, no, it'll be really funny and people will get it because it's a play on words. And you relented and here we are, Roger Wilco.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I am a stickler for protocol, I was so strongly against the name when you first pitched it to me. But after a little bit of persuasion and thought, I agree. It's a funny name. Veterans will relate to it, and it's a really good inside joke, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think everyone's going to get the joke. Fingers crossed. I hope that they get our humour, which will be great because it's important to have a laugh.
I agree. Why are we going to do this podcast? What's the main goal for us in this podcast, do you think?
Listen, I think the reason that we have talked about it so much back and forth for the last little while, long while actually, is there doesn't really seem to be much out there for just regular veterans who, you know, just run-of-the-mill, ordinary people. And it's important to us, obviously, to have a strong sense of community, given the work that we do together as well, that, there's something that we can do that a lot of people will relate to and feel supported by it, because that's the aim of the game for us, is to create something where we can share stories with each other and our listeners and, get other people on to talk about their experiences and open up the lines of communication so that people feel heard and they feel supported, and hopefully that it'll be something fun and enjoyable for people to listen to. But at the end of the day, making everyone aware too that, you're not alone and we've all been through a lot of the same stuff. And that's why we decided to do this.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the most important thing is that, we don't care how long you served for, what you did in your service, whether you deployed or you didn't deploy, whether you're in for 1 year, 5 years, 20 years. To us, every veteran's the same, regardless of what they've done in their career.
Exactly.
We all sign that dotted line. We all were willing to, give our lives for our country, and I think that's the most important thing, is to recognise everybody has served. It doesn't matter what they've done.
Exactly, and it doesn't, obviously we are both ex-army ourselves, and so we have that humour, but it's also about communicating with, members who were in the RAF or in the Navy or, police veterans, emergency services, ambulance, fireys, whatever. At the crux of everything, we all have that common shared experience, and I think that it's really important that we build a sense of community around that for each other.
I agree. So, for me personally, I think that, the whole covering the stories of our service, but also our stories of after service and how hard it was for us to adapt back into civilian lifestyle. I think it's going to be something that we're going to really strongly touch on because of the work that we're doing together. and that. So, I struggled myself a lot after my medical discharge from the army. So, you know yourself a bit of my history.
Yep.
But our listeners don't. But a bit about myself. I joined the army when I was about 19. I was a cadet before that. I did that for about 7 years. Got to warrant officer, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time as a cadet.
That's not something you want to admit to as an adult, though, and it's definitely not something you admit to at Kapuka that you were a cadet.
No, I definitely didn't admit that at Kapuka.
No way.
But I am still very proud of it. And, I was fifth generation army, so, my old man was in the army and his dad before him, and it was a very big part of my childhood. And that's what encouraged me and pushed me to join the army. But I found after my medical discharge, after my injury, losing my identity as a soldier, and I felt like a failure to my family, because once I get medically discharged and my old man retires, that service, my family service, ends with us. So that was a big pill to swallow. Took me a very long time, and some very, very dark moments to get past that. But I found my way out of those dark times, with working with cadets and the RSL and now working with you, and the friendship we've created since working together with our veteran outreach pathways. And I think just being able to share our stories with other people will help them get past their dark times too, I believe.
Absolutely. And it's the whole thing, like we said, about building a community. And when you're around people who have similar shared experiences, you tend to find that it's easier for you to talk about your own experiences, whether they're good or bad. Like, for example, everyone jokes around about, if you were in my era or generations before or even after, if someone mentioned Bob the Emu at Kapuka, we'd all know who that is, right? And, that's just like a fond memory. But again, it's like a collective memory that a lot of people share with each other. And I'm sure there's the equivalent in Navy terms, and RAF would have their own little, jokes about recruit training and that kind of thing. But I think definitely being able to talk to like-minded people who have had experiences, and like I said, they don't all have to have been bad. I'm sure there's a lot of people that, transitioned out and discharged and have never, struggled with their mental health or, becoming part of civilian life after the routine of being in the Defence Force or being a police officer or an AMBO or a fiery or whatever the case may be. But there's also a lot of people that did. So it will be really nice to get all of those people together and be able to share their experiences and, applaud them and empathise with them, and just open that space up for people to be heard in an environment where they don't have to worry about being judged or anything like that. And I think that's really important that we try and create that space for people.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to have a lot of people come on to the podcast over the coming weeks to talk with us and share their stories and that type of thing, which I think is going to be really awesome.
Yeah, it really will be.
Some of our mates onto here and hearing their stories and that. I'm really, really looking forward to that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just people sharing their experiences, it'll be really good to have the people that we've got coming on to talk about things like looking after your physical health, looking after your mental health, but not in a preachy way or coming from a way of, like a doctor coming on and say, oh, you should do this and that or whatever, there's going to be health professionals and there's going to be qualified people in their fields that are going to talk about stuff, but it's not going to be in a judgmental way. It's just going to be like saying, hey, these are maybe some of the things that you could look out for when you have concerns about your health or your mental health. These are some gentle ways to get through it. There's opportunities to reach out for support and all that kind of thing. But, the whole way through, I think what we really want to stress to everybody is that, we're just two really normal people with families and responsibilities and all that kind of thing. And we just really feel very passionate about creating something that everybody can be a part of in, not a judgy way at all. And, we just want it to be a really relaxed space and, just a nice gentle vibe. And, we can laugh and we can get emotional and we can do all the things. But it's just, there's no agenda here to, we're not trying to sell you anything. We're not trying to make money. Excuse me. We're not trying to do any of those things. It's really about opening up avenues of communication and support. And even if there's one person driving in their car or, sitting at home listening to it, and we really hope that, we build a really, good following of listeners, because if one thing that we say resonates with one person, and that sounds really corny, but that would be amazing. And that would mean that what we've done, we've achieved the success that we want to, because we've gotten through to one person, or we've made one person decide, you know what, maybe I will go for a walk this afternoon and get out in the sunshine and, take some time to myself, or, whatever that may be, or maybe I will call my mate and have a chat, or, anything. Like, that's what it's all about. Just basic, easy stuff, but just encouraging everybody to, take that care and be kind to themselves and to other people, and, just live your best life.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because I find that with my struggles with my mental health, I've tried so many things, and I've done a lot of programs and seen a lot of psychologists and everything, and everything's helped me in a little while. But I always found the best thing that has helped me is just being around mates that understand and that you can just talk to openly, and just sitting around having a laugh and having a talk has been the best form of recovery and medication, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
I find that being able to talk freely has made me so much happier and healthier. And since finding you as a mate, being able to just laugh at the
we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that. Yeah.
Just at the most random, stupid things that we just laugh. And
yep.
I remember people being told laughter is the best medication.
Yep.
And I always thought it was really silly and corny and everything, but really it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes you feel so good inside.
Yeah, and you don't even have to, when you're around people, and you don't even have to be talking about what's wrong or your struggles, or, if you're involved in a traumatic incident or whatever. It doesn't even have to be about that. You don't even have to talk about that. You don't even have to talk at all. Even if you're just hanging with people and you're just sitting there in a comfortable silence, but everyone gets that you might be feeling a bit off or whatever. It's that knowing that you're not by yourself, that you don't feel alone. And that is the biggest thing, you know how passionate I am about all of this stuff and how passionate I am about mental health and that kind of thing. And I think the worst thing is that people feel so alone in their experiences, and, we need to try and change that, because nothing is ever that bad. I know people say that, but, we have both been through some really shit stuff with our mental health, but nothing is that bad that you can't get through it with the right support and with kindness and understanding of yourself as well as other people. And that's what we hope that people will kind of take away from this as well,
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's going to be one hell of a ride, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's going to be lots of laughter and lots of fun, like you said, but there's also going to be conversations that are going to be maybe emotional and confrontational and triggering maybe for some people, and we will always give the correct warnings and all of that sort of thing in our episodes for things like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like even if it is a triggering conversation in terms of someone's experience or something like that, at the same time, even those very people that it may trigger, it will bring out the empathy in them as well, because they'll be like, you know, fuck, I get that. I've been there. I've felt that. And, you know, there'll be no judgment from anybody, and there'll just be understanding and support. And I know this feels all airy-fairy and everything for, you know, the hardened veterans that might be listening, but it's important. And, you know, we need to be more open about talking about these things. You know, people say it all the time, and, you know, people go on about mental health and looking after yourself and stuff like that. And, you know, it's, you know, you have like your mental health days every year, are you okay day, all of that. It should be that every day. It should be every day that we check in with people. We shouldn't care about mental health just because someone famous takes their life or whatever, and then it becomes like the buzzword for a week, and then you never hear about that person again or whatever. This shit is happening every day. Every day veterans are taking their lives. Every day people struggle to the point where they feel that there is no other option, and that shit needs to stop.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I think the biggest challenge for veterans is when we join the Army and we go through Kapuka, there's a manual, there's protocols, and there's rules for every single thing we do.
Yeah, and it's the same in any, like, doesn't matter what arm of the Defence Force, doesn't matter, again, whether you're emergency services or whatever, there's routine and regulation to everything, and we all have that in common.
Yep.
And when you don't have that anymore, it's like, well, what the hell do I now?
Yeah, because there's no manual or protocol on how to live your life outside of the defence.
No, there's not. You know, like it's a really hard transition to make from knowing that you have to be up and at work by 8 o'clock every day, knowing that you have to do PT, knowing that you're on duty for, and your shift is like, you know, 8, 12, 14 hours, whatever it might be. You know, you have those expectations on you every day. You have that regimented lifestyle every single day. Even when you're not at work, you still conduct yourself that way. And then when you stop doing that and you enter civilian life, it's like, well, shit, like I don't have to be up at this time, but you're used to it. And then you really struggle to even interact with civilian people because it's like, okay, well, they're not talking like me. They're not holding themselves like I do. They don't take as much pride in what they do. Everyone's always late. Why? I'm always like 10 minutes early for stuff. You know you've got to be on time for shit. So you always rock up early. Yeah. Just little things like that. And people don't understand how hard it is to stop doing that. Even to this day, and I have been out for a long time, I still have to walk in step next to people. It's instinctive. If someone, I'm walking next to someone, and I do it with you all the time, I have to change step, and I don't even think about it. You laugh at me, but it's just something that I just have to do. I do it when I'm walking down the street with my husband. I do it when I'm with my kids, my grandkids, whatever. Like it's just, you know, it's little things like that that we don't think about that are just ingrained in us, and it's really hard to shake all of that.
And I find it so funny because I always thought I was the only weird one that did that. I thought I was the only one that kept in step with the person I was walking beside. But you do it as well, and it's actually really reassuring that I'm not the only one out there.
No, exactly.
But yes. So I think this podcast, the first episode, is probably going to be one of our shortest.
Yeah.
Because we're just introducing everything and everything. I think it took us longer to prep ourselves and get ourselves ready and stop laughing as much.
Absolutely. And we're both really nervous because it's a hard thing to do, to just have a conversation. I mean, trust me, you'll get to know me. It's not hard for me to have a conversation, right? But it's hard when you know that you're trying to have a conversation that you want people to listen to.
Exactly.
Because you want them to be engaged in it, but also they kind of can't engage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think really this one was just more about getting to know us a little bit and wanting to explain to everybody why this is so important to us and why we wanted to do this. I think that was the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then as we go down the track, like we've got a plan of every episode, like what we want it to be about and all that. But at the same time, we don't want it to be too structured where it's like, you know, during this lesson you'll be taught, you know, bang, bang, bang. But, you know, we do want to have, you know, some really centered discussions around lots of things, but we also want everyone to enjoy it and we want to have fun too. And, you know, we hope that translates into what you're listening to.
I think that covers everything we wanted to talk about tonight for our first episode. I'm really, really looking forward to what this podcast is going to bring for us and for our listeners.
I'm really excited.
I think it's going to really open the door to some good conversations. And like you said, we don't want it to be too structured. We want a plan and everything, but we just want it to be two mates talking and just having a good time. And when we have our guests on, we just want it to be
mates,
we just want our mates and our guests on, and we just want to have real down to earth, genuine conversations, and just hopefully if we can just help one or two veterans out there, that's one or two veterans that we didn't help before.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's like we said, without being preachy or anything, we need to build a community. And I know there are a lot of organisations out there that do amazing stuff. But, you know, one more group of people trying to help each other is not a bad thing at all. And, you know, like I said before too, we are just two really ordinary people who, you know, have become really good mates, and we're very passionate about being there for other veterans. And we just thought, you know what, we're just going to give this a crack. And we really hope that as time goes on, you know, more people hear about it and more people listen in, and that what we're doing can be of service to somebody. At the end of the day, that's all we care about, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And I would also love that, you know, if our listeners could, you know, comment on things where they can. We've got a Facebook page.
Send us questions. Send us
that's right.
recommendations for, you know, if there's things you want us to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. If there's something specific somebody wants us to talk about, something
absolutely.
they want to cover.
Yep. Engagement is what it's all about. Building a community, having conversations, you know, interact with us on social media and stuff like that.
And especially like we us as military veterans, you know, we've got a lot of mates, both in the Army, Navy and Air Force. You know, I don't particularly like to hang around too many Navy blokes.
My son is ex-Navy. That's really mean. That's really mean.
But, you know, one of my best mates is ex-Air Force, and I try my hardest not to hold that against him, but he is a good bloke.
I do that all the time when I ask someone what corps they were in, and if someone says that they were infantry or something, and I'll go, yeah, what corps were you in? And they'll say infantry, and I go, I'm sorry. And then it takes them a second that I'm being sarcastic and, you know, whatever, but most people get the joke. But, you know, it's again, just a way to have a bit of fun. And
that's it. And none of it is personal. It's always a joke.
It never is. And, you know, like it transcends around everything. Like, doesn't matter, Defence Force, you know, police, fire, ambulance, whatever. There's always that camaraderie separately within your own forces and whatnot, but also together collectively, because at the end of the day, we all served the country, the community in some capacity, and you can't ever take that away from us. And it's something that we all have, you know, even if we don't know each other, we're all bonded by that, and we're a different breed of people in a way. And we need to show support for one another. So I'm really, really excited about where this is going to go.
Yeah, me too. And I would really like any of our listeners who are ex-police, ex-ambos, ex-fireys to reach out to us and give us some advice on how to engage with their family and their friendship circles. So engage with us as much as you can. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. We're putting these podcasts up on Spotify, YouTube for the time being. We'll look at other platforms as well as we go on.
Yeah, we're still learning all of this stuff.
Yes, it's very, very
you
new.
more than me because you're the techie nerd. I have no clue. I'm just an old lady that likes to talk. But it would just be really lovely to get some engagement from people and. Let us know if we're on the right track. Let us know if we sound like strangled cats, because I think I do. Nick thinks he does too. Sorry, Nicholas. There's a whole story about that too, but we'll get into that next time. But, we're just really excited to bring this podcast to everybody and, just support you and let you know that there are people out there that give a shit and that understand. And I'm going to apologise in advance for my bad words, but, it is what it is.
And I apologise in advance for mine too. I am very bad with swearing.
Yeah.
But I'll do my best not to swear too much so we can keep this family friendly as much as we can.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to try and do a podcast to start with every second week.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks to start with. We may go to every week depending on how things go, but we're going to start with every 2 weeks to start with.
Yeah.
Catch us next Friday fortnight. Pull up a chair, grab a beer, grab a coffee, whatever you want to do, and listen in.
Absolutely.
But no, thank you for listening and joining us on our crazy adventure.
Yes.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, Kez. I love ya.
Yeah, on you, mate.
Yes.